Most automotive employers hire too quickly. They have somebody apply or is referred to them. That person shows up, says the right things, and the next thing, everyone's committed to potentially a 3-year apprenticeship program. But actually, the candidate doesn't quite meet expectations. The problem is the wrong apprentice doesn't just cost you time. They drain your team, they slow your productivity, and they cost you money. But with the right candidate, the absolute opposite is true. And you can only find those through a really thorough screening process. In this video, I'm going to share with you how to properly screen and find great apprentice candidates, what to look for, what to avoid, and the actual process we use at Apprenticeship Central to ensure that we are presenting only high qualified, motivated, job-ready individuals. Most employers want to attract brilliant apprentice candidates, but they actually lack the screening process that ensures they have the right fit. And this isn't because it's difficult, but it's because the methodologies we've used previously are no longer fit for today's workplace, making the processes outdated and ineffective. For example, CVs and cover letters used to tell you a lot about a person and help you identify stronger candidates from weaker ones. But nowadays, younger people are just using AI to write them. This means that you're not seeing their communication skills, their abilities, their personalities, but instead you're seeing something that's written for them that may not relate to any of the qualities that they actually possess as a person. In today's current market, there's multiple pressures for them to be making application upon application. So what we're often seeing is just scrolling and ticking apply without any real thought or consideration behind it. What that means for you is that you're getting people turn up for interview that don't necessarily know what the role is, what their responsibilities would be, what their future career could look like, and they're not engaged or motivated by what you're actually offering them. The other challenge is that most employers don't have a structured screening process. Instead, it's one visit, one meeting, one quick chat that then turns into job offers or commitment. There are no multi-step checks or chances to see the apprentice in different situations. And unfortunately, this is where bad candidates can fall through the cracks. Without a clear, repeatable screening process, you end up taking just the first candidate that applies. And not because they were the best, but just because you're frustrated and you need to get this done. The first step in our screening process is the application itself, and it's specifically designed to slow candidates down. We built an application that makes them stop and it makes them think. Candidates have to look at resources, read about the role, and really understand what it means to be starting a career in the world of automotive. They also have to answer specific questions that really get to the bottom of whether they're applying just because it's another application or whether this is something they're really interested in. So this leaves you with the people who are really committed. They've shown their curiosity, they've shown their dedication, and they're willing to get stuck in from day one. We sometimes get quizzed on this, and employers ask us, if I make it hard to apply and multi-step, does that not mean I'm going to get fewer applications? But actually, this is the opposite of what we found. We recently spoke to Fix Auto Liverpool South, where our recruitment campaign generated more applicants than they'd experienced when they did this independently. And one of the candidates actually said to us that this application made them stop and think about what this apprenticeship was going to be, unlike others they'd applied for. A solid, longer application deters the wrong candidates, but signals to the right ones that you're serious and committed to this role. The second step is where we really get to know who that candidate is, and we get them to write an essay as to why they want that particular role. With this, the better we understand that candidate, the better we can match them with the right business, the right culture, the right value, and really find that perfect pairing. We're not checking things like grammar or spelling, but instead we're giving them the opportunity to communicate to us honestly and clearly about what they're really looking for. You can tell a lot from how people answer these questions. Can they explain why they want the role? Can they talk about themselves in a simple, truthful way? You can see the maturity, their mindset, and whether they've actually taken the time to think about the answers that they're giving. Most employers never see this part, but it's one of the strongest indicators as to how that person is going to really act once they're in the workplace. The next thing we look at is the academic side. We're not looking for straight A students. This is not what apprenticeships are about. But we have to be real and say there are elements of maths and English that are vital in order to actually achieve an apprenticeship qualification. So what we don't want to do is set anyone up to fail. If a young person struggles massively with these areas, it will only put pressure on later on in the programme. They may fall behind, lose confidence, or end up needing constant support. So we check their grades to understand two things. First, whether they're academically able to complete the qualification. And secondly, whether they may need extra support, so that we can make sure that this is well communicated to everybody involved right from the start of programme. The world of automotive is an accepting industry, but apprenticeships come with tasks, tests and modules and we need to know that they can manage it. Getting this right prevents issues further down the line, and it protects both the apprentice as much as it does the employer. So the fourth step, once we know a candidate is motivated for the role and can handle the academic side, is a case of moving them over to the competency checks. These are short health and safety and problem-solving questionnaires to really understand how switched on somebody is. We're not testing technical knowledge. We're not looking at mechanical skill. What we want to see is how they think, how they follow instructions, and whether they take health and safety seriously. The next step is a telephone interview, and this is where a lot of candidates drop out. A quick phone call will give you a better overview of the person than any CV or summary ever will. You can hear their attitude straight away. You can hear how they speak, how they respond, whether they've actually read up about the role or whether they know what they're applying for. It's also the first opportunity to really see whether they can hold a basic professional conversation. Apprenticeships can be 3 to 4 years long, so if they're struggling to communicate on a short phone call, it may indicate problems down the road in terms of communication, confidence, or even reliability. And look, this is not an interrogation. We have teams of people that have these conversations daily, and it's about building that connection so that we can identify whether that candidate's honest, polite, switched on, trustworthy, and ready for that next stage. For many employers, this call would save hours of wasted time meeting unsuitable candidates. By this shortlisting stage, most of the weaker candidates have filtered themselves out, and we're left with brilliant individuals who have shown effort, awareness, and genuine interest. Our goal here is simple. We don't overwhelm employers with 20 applicants, CVs attached, and profiles. Instead, we present to you only the candidates that have passed every single part of our process and that we feel would be a really brilliant addition to your business. This saves employers a huge amount of time because you're not meeting with uninterested, unmotivated candidates. Instead, you're meeting with only the strongest options who have already proved themselves and are committed. And it also makes that decision so much easier because we've already removed the weaker candidates. So you're only comparing a few really strong candidates and deciding which one of those or which few of those are going to be right for your business. Once we have a strong shortlist, we then move to interview stage. And this is where the approach needs to change because employers cannot be interviewing potential apprentice candidates in the same way that they would qualified members of staff with years of experience. They will not have past job examples. They will not have technical skill examples. They will not have past employment. So what you're looking for here is you're assessing the person, not just the CV. The best apprentice interviews focus on curiosity, attitude, interest, and their understanding of what it actually means to be starting their career in automotive. We coordinate these interviews to make sure that employers have everything that they need. The right questions, the right structure, the right expectations. This keeps the process fair, consistent, and focused on potential rather than experience. The quality presented here should feel extremely high. In fact, one of the Fitz Auto sites that we've worked with ended up taking all 4 candidates we presented, despite initially recruiting for just 1 vacancy. And that's because the candidates and the quality of the candidates were just too good to turn down. The next stage is the site trial, and this is one of the best ways to understand how this potential candidate will actually fit within your business. You can learn more about a candidate during 1 hour on site than you can in any interview or application process. A trial is short, structured, and observed, and they're not necessarily contributing to actual activities or tasks being completed. It should not be used as cheap labour. And if they do start to contribute to meaningful tasks completed, this is where you get into the realms of having to pay for their time. Instead, it should be used to test a cultural fit and whether this is actually going to be something that both parties want to take forward longer term. A site trial is also a chance for the wider team to give feedback. And actually sometimes it's really valuable in highlighting things that maybe hiring managers have missed. Sometimes feedback from a potential mentor saying, yeah, I'd happily work with them, let's get them on board, could mean everything. When done properly, a structured trial removes doubt and confirms whether the apprentice is the right fit. Finally, before an apprentice starts, we make sure that everything feels right on both sides. This is a quick and simple check, but it's one of the best things to do to prevent early dropout. We make sure that the apprentice fully understands what they're committing to, both in the apprenticeship training itself, what that training delivery method looks like, what the qualification is that they're doing, but also what starting a career in automotive actually means. If they're not quite sure about any of these things, it might be too early to sign that final paperwork. So it's better to have these conversations up front in an honest and trusted environment. And we also have those conversations with the employer, making sure they've got things like their health and safety, their safeguarding sorted, but also have they allocated and set up the right mentor. Does the wider team know what having an apprentice actually means? And are we giving everybody the best chance to set up for success? We also listened to feedback from the site trial. How did the rest of the team feel? How did the apprentice engage? Were there any concerns that need addressing before day one? It's a small step, but it's a reason that our placements set up for long-term retention, and we make sure that they're built on the right foundations. When you look at this whole process, it's clear to see why most employers struggle to find great apprentice talent. It's not because the talent isn't out there, but it's because that talent needs to be screened properly, and it needs to be treated in a way that's respectable, trusted and fair. A one-step interview, a quick chat, nor a CV check can do that for you. The difference between an apprentice who stays for years and becomes a really valuable asset to your business versus somebody who drains time, slows productivity and leaves early almost always comes down to how well they were screened initially. This is why we run the process for you, and we take all the hassle and admin from your team. You get a handful of strong, committed, properly screened candidates who have shown effort at every step throughout the process. And if you want to build a pipeline, not just fill a vacancy, then the process that you follow in screening candidates is the most important thing you do when it comes to recruitment. If you want to see how this process can work within your business, then book a consultation call. We'll chat through how implementing a proper screening process can really make the difference between just taking your next hire and actually building a team that will future-proof your business.